that is oil-free, nut-free cheese, my friend. Yes, it is. And it's lovely, it's sliceable, it's really easy. So this is going to be super fun. So I already have the water measured out. We're going to do about 2 cups of water. I'm going to have to look at my recipe. We're going to do a 1/2 cup of rolled oats. Because I'm kind of on this oat, I'm definitely on an oat kick, wouldn't you say? Am I always on an oat kick? Perhaps. Okay. Because I've made a similar cheese. This is very similar to the other oil-free cheeses that we've made. I've made one with nuts. I've made one with beans. And I thought we should make one with oats, right? And you can find them out most places with cashews. Now I chopped up a jalapeno pepper. Mine is quite mild. We're going to be adding this when we start to cook it. Not all of that, but what I did is and we can talk about some other things we can put in there, is I just got some crushed chilies, and I thought these were a little big, so I put them through the grinder really quick, just so it'll disperse a little more evenly. We're also going to put in some nutritional yeast. Okay, so we're going to put in a 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast. This scoop is 1/8 of a cup. And that gives us the cheesy goodness. I am using salt on this. If you would like to not use salt, you could use the salt-free blend that I usually do: a tablespoon of ground garlic, a tablespoon of ground onion powder, both are powders, and 1 teaspoon of ground celery seed, and then use it, put it in a bowl like this and use it like salt. Ta-da! We are going to put in our lactic acid. This is vegan lactic acid. So we're going to do 1½ teaspoons of lactic acid. If you don't, let's say, I want to make this today, Kathy, and I'm taking your class and you're asking me to have a crazy ingredient on hand. You're giving me that look. Go ahead and use like 1½ teaspoons of miso. You could use like a teaspoon of vinegar. You could do any of these things to kind of give it a similar flavor. It's not going to be exactly the same. It's not necessarily going to be worse. It's just going to be a tad bit different. And this one, because of the bite, I'm using a pinch of mustard powder. You could also do I think I decided this was like 1/36 of a teaspoon. So it's like a big pinch for me, or probably a regular pinch for people who don't have chipmunk hands. Now you'll never be able to unsee them. I have the tiniest hands. We're going to do 1½ teaspoon, no, we're going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of both onion and garlic powder, because we're using these to kind of help with the cheesy flavor. We are not really doing this to add a true garlic or onion flavor to it, but you could up that if you wanted to. It's your cheese sauce. I say more power to you. So I'm just kind of shaking that around just to make sure that the oats aren't staying at the top. And then we're going to blend this. Then we're going to be adding in some of that kappa carrageenan, food grade, and we'll talk about an option for that if you're like, yeah, I don't think so. Okay, I got an option for you. And some tapioca starch. These two things, the tapioca starch makes it nice and cheese-like, stringy, good texture. The kappa carrageenan is what lets us make it sliceable. So while this is blending, and you won't be able to hear me, I'm going to bring the cheese over again to show you, just so you know it's worth it. It's really pretty much done now. And okay, I know this is where I want it to be as far as taste. You could taste this right now and go, well, Kathy's great with her flavors and all, but I wish it had more garlic in it. And you can really get a very good sense of what the flavor is going to be like when you smell it right now. Now that is without the jalapeno or the red peppers, so we're just looking for that cheesy, funky sort of smell, flavor. So we're going to do 3 tablespoons of tapioca flour. And it might say tapioca starch, it might say tapioca flour. It's all the same stuff. You probably could use arrowroot, but this is how I always do it. We're going to do 2 tablespoons of kappa carrageenan. And let's talk about this. So this is what makes it sliceable. If you have a certain stomach condition or maybe IBS, sometimes this isn't recommended. And I know there's studies and there's some things out there and everybody's like, carrageenan is the devil. Everything will be the devil eventually, I think. Let me show you what we're looking at. And I'll have a board that has all these things again. Actually, you can't see that in that bag. Here we go. This will be better. It's because it has carrageenan dust in that bag. So it is 100% natural. It's from cultivated seaweed. It's gluten-free, it's vegan. If you have, and it's used for molecular gastronomy, and it used to be used to make your favorite non-dairy milk be the thickness that it was, but it's not anymore. So if you're not using food grade, it's like when we talk about using culinary lavender versus just lavender. So if I go on Amazon, this lavender's half price and it's dried, it's fine. It's made for craft projects. I don't know what was put on it when it was growing. It's not for consumption, which means somewhere along that supply chain, something could have been put on there that's not okay to eat. That's why we look for the word culinary. It sounds like it's the fancy special lavender, but it's the lavender without poison on it. Really. So there is industrial carrageenan, which is different than food grade carrageenan. And with that all said, I am not arguing that if your tummy doesn't like it, don't use it. You will not get a sliceable cheese. You will get more of a sauce. And in fact, for enchiladas, I'm suspecting we're going to do something like this without the carrageenan. This, because I'm using the Ninja blender, this is just going to get stuck on here. So I'm just going to move it around till it gets at least a little bit wetter, and so all that dry isn't just going to stick on the blades. This is the magic. This is why you take classes, right? Just so you can see these exciting little tips. And see how it's just kind of making a big blob still, but that should stick less. And we'll switch cameras. Awesome. So we've got these 2 ingredients that are basically turning this from a sauce into a block of cheese. And I did actually try to stick spatula in when I did one of these, and it just all stuck to the spatula. So that's why I'm shaking it gently. And this doesn't really need to get mixed quite as much. And what we're going to do is then we're going to put it into our saucepan. And I just really love this stuff so much. And actually, let me wipe this out. I'm going to be putting it in this mold. And I think I used all the things. So I'm going to move those out of the way. There's a reason I organize things this way, so I don't forget anything. Yeah, carrageenan is nice. I think I'm going to rinse this off really quick, so I'll take you guys with me before I turn on the heat on my nemesis, the induction burner, because you know it's going to do something to me. I'm going to be using possibly that smaller Ninja one in a minute. Drop the rest of this over here. All right, I'm feeling better. So here's the thing. You've got to whisk this stuff the whole time. That's why I didn't even want to turn this on. So I've got one jalapeno, and it's a mild jalapeno, and I minced it by hand even. You could use a small little chopper. If you didn't want this to be spicy, like we just lucked out. We got some jalapenos at the Mexican market or the Hispanic market, and it was mild this time. I actually am growing some mild so I can make some mild powder just for Cheryl. Instead of using these guys, you could use bell pepper, dried or not dried. And you can put anywhere from half a teaspoon to a lot, depending on how hot you would like this. We all know how hot Cheryl would like this, which is not very. Okay, so I'm going to turn this on about medium heat, which is maybe this. And the process is going to work similar. So I can just go ahead and mix this up just so it can start mixing those colors in. That's where you get that pretty Monterey Jack color. So there are other things we could do here. Now it's too light. It was too dark before, it's too light now. Welcome to my world. There we go. I think you'll see that a little bit better. So see how liquidy it is right now. And I just minced the jalapeno. You could mince red and green jalapenos. You could put fresh habanero in here, my friend. You can do whatever the heck you want because you're making your own vegan cheese. Okay. Now some of this, the oat milk itself will thicken up a little bit. So we just have to make sure it's really that it's the tapioca and the carrageenan thickening up. Let me turn this down a little bit. And it's gonna, you can already see how it's grabbing onto there, I think. Can you see some of the chunks? And I've made a few batches. So I will say, the first batch I made, I actually used too much oats in it. And it thickened up really fast and it didn't set like the one I just showed you. Oh, but I tell you, my arm is tired of all the whisking. And it's also going to start to get shinier, which it already is. Can you kind of see a little bit of that shine? That is also a sign, the shine sign, that this is thickening the right way. Oh, I should have had Cheryl up here. Make sure this is, there we go. Get it in a little bit. Turn it down a little bit more. And chances are on your regular stovetop, it's not going to thicken up quite this fast. And we don't want any of this to settle and burn on the bottom. It's okay if it gets a little not as smooth, but one of the signs, and see how this is still wet, but it's kind of holding together when I move it. That's a sign that it's happening. Oh, seriously, you guys, I have done this too much. It is a little bit chunkier with the oats, and I'm okay with that. Okay. All right. So, and all of this that's on here is going to come off like in little cheese pieces. So what we're going to do, and we can do this. I had another version, the one I took out a minute ago, I had in here. So it is going to clump up some as we pour it in. and that's okay. And here's the thing, if you don't cook it long enough, you'll just have a soft cheese. Is that really such a bad thing? I don't think so. So I kind of feel like this is a little bit foolproof. But like I said, this one is a little more chunky with the oats, but it's also cheaper. And with the bean cheese, you could totally do this with beans and see how it starts to kind of, you can see it there, I think. How that's kind of, actually it looks like a slice of American cheese where it's shiny and it's kind of holding up. And so you're just going to put it in something like this that's like a mold. And you'll be able to know that you're on the right track if you get pieces off your spatula like that, right? And this is going to be the bottom of our cheese anyhow, but see how that's sticking together? Okay, so see how if I move it, it even starts to come away? Can you guys, oh, you can't really see it because the angle I have to do it at to make that happen. But so as I move it from one side to side, I can see that it actually moves freely away from the sides. That's another sign that it's doing well. So here's how I've chosen to do this. And some of the little bits will come back up. So it's still jiggly in the middle. It's hot. It has to cool. I made a mistake in some of my versions of this, and I put a lid on it and put it in the fridge. Well, what happened is it captured all the condensation and it kept it really wet. It was delicious spread onto a quesadilla. So it wasn't a waste, but so if yours doesn't set up, just use it like a spread. It should, but just should something happen, it still tastes delicious. And the one that didn't turn out well was our dinner. But so all the little pieces that are here that I didn't smush in enough, those will probably come off, and that's okay. And again, I made this in that same mold, and see, I can pick it up, and you can see here on the sides it's kind of rough on the bottom like it was there, but it looks nicer on the top. I will also say the shredding of it is iffy. I couldn't find my big shredder, but I did put some in the freezer from this batch, and so we'll try and shred that. So I'm going to let this cool for a while in here. Then, and I could almost do it now because it'll slide right out. You guys see that? Slides right out. But I'm going to let it cool a little bit more in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it out onto a clean paper towel and on here, and then even go another direction with it. So we'll let this kind of work its way for a couple minutes, and I will show you. Let's try shred that cheese and see what happens. Oh, it's hard. Oh, good. I did bring this. So let's see if this is better, because the shreds that these are, it's not bad. And these will be great if we want to put them in taquitos too. We could also just slice it and put it on top of some of our toppings. And I love that I can use a cheese slicer that I got at a conference for this and not use the other one. See, this one's pretty small. This one's even smaller. So you'd probably have better luck with a larger grater too. So you can even see it has some frost on it. Oh, it's definitely, oh, way, way better. Do you guys see that? So I think that it would be better to freeze it, shred it, and then put it back in the freezer. And then you could just top it. That's so much better. So yeah. And that way you could do this over salads and stuff. And we'll see. Now, what we may find out too is this may melt into one big heap. So let's make a big old heap of it and see what happens. It wouldn't be a class if we didn't know something could fail, right? Because the whole purpose of this stuff is that I don't want you to worry about failing. I want you just to try, and sometimes things work out really well and sometimes they don't. And actually, I may have bought us enough time to go ahead and turn this out. And actually, I should also, yeah, those look perfect. We'll get to that in a second. All right, so again, I just turn it out on my hand, give it a little shake. There you go. And can you see the steam possibly rising up against there? So I'm going to put it on here because it's still real. You could let it wait much longer than that. But I would like to make sure that it's cured, I guess is the word we're going to use. So I tried before just putting it on here. I found that it's not quite firm enough or cool enough, because in a few minutes then we can put it on here. It might be, might not be. And then let it finish off. So we'll let it do like this for a little bit. And it's just a really nice block. So see how it's really firm now. It's not like kind of jiggly, and it's cooling down more. It really is solid. It's still warm though, so I know it still needs some time. So I could put it like this and on top of this. It's not going to fall down because it's solid now. And I've got 3 sides that it's sitting on. But that'll give it a little extra oomph to cool a little bit faster.